Hey guys, we're doing a special edition this morning of the Zera Shimshon class at the Lighthouse Project. Today's class is in memory of Dvor Fega Bat Shmuel. May her neshama have an aliyah in Gan Eden. And thank you everyone for joining us this morning for our special edition. Normally we do our Lighthouse Projects on Wednesday night, but there was an event last night because tonight is the fast of Esther and the Megillah reading. And we're also going to do it here this morning. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you for tuning in online. Be sure to subscribe and to like the class and share it. This week we are reading the second Torah portion in the book of Leviticus. The name of this week's Parashat is Tzav, and we're going to, with the help of God, connect this week's Torah portion to our lives, then to Megillat Esther, and then back to our lives for some real, deep, clear, and applicable Torah material. The Zera Shimshon starts off this week by quoting a midrash. The midrash that he quotes is quoting a verse in Mishle. King Solomon writes in Proverbs, chapter 10, verse 12, and I'm quoting, Sin'a te'orer medanim, that hatred arouses strife. That's a very harsh pasuk, harsh verse that King Solomon writes. And the midrash says, you know what this verse is alluding to? That hatred arouses strife? It's alluding to how and what Aaron did between God and the Jewish people. That's a very severe, very harsh thing. Aaron was the one who brought strife and hatred between God and the Jewish people. On the contrary, when we think about Aaron HaKohen, we think of him as the high priest, one of the greatest individuals the Jewish people have ever had, one of the greatest human beings that ever walked the face of this earth. He was a man who went from person to make peace. Between a husband and a wife, between business associates, neighbors, enemies. He went and he was a peaceful man. Ish Shalom. However, the Midrash is quoting this verse in Proverbs telling us that he was the one who brought hatred between God and the Jewish people. How so? So, Reb Asi in the Midrash tells us, do you know why? We have to remember something which was quite unfortunate. We remember that Aaron was the conduit for the sin of the golden calf. It was, unfortunately, due to him. He miscalculated. He wanted to postpone the Jewish people from sinning, so he said, go bring all your gold. Now go get gold out of Jews. He did it. If anyone ever needs to run a fundraising campaign, they should be calling for Aaron. Aaron and Moses did a tremendous job. Aaron on the golden calf, unfortunately, and Moses on the building of the tabernacle. But they brought back the gold really quickly. Now this gold was taken and he threw it into the fire. Out comes a golden calf. The Jewish people now worship it. But he did something else. Reb Asi tells us that Aharon HaKohen tells the Jewish people, it's not worth any substance. It's not worth worshipping this piece of metal. It's like for those who are on Weight Watchers or trying to be on a diet. I've seen these type of people. Thank God I'm not one of those. I'm still young. I'm still in good shape. But there are certain people which before they eat something, they calculate how many calories is it, how tasty is it, how much pleasure am I going to get from it, is it worth eating it? A person always weighs out the pros and cons in whatever they do, or are supposed to actually, but sometimes if you present someone with a stale donut, or an old cookie, or something that's full of sugar and calories and not healthy, or a hamburger to some people, what's going through their mind is it worth me eating this or not? So you know what Aaron was saying? This sin is not worth it. It's not worth forgoing and going against God to bow down to a piece of metal, to a golden calf. However, unfortunately, the Jewish people still worship the golden calf. And by them worshiping the golden calf, what Aaron did was he took a sin which would have just been an unintentional sin, as we say in Hebrew, a shogeg, and he upgraded it to a more severe sin of being a mezid, an intentional sin. How wrong is it? How intentionally wrong is it to eat something you know that doesn't taste good, isn't going to give you so much pleasure, it's stale, and very unhealthy for you? Not worth anything at all. That's exactly what the Jewish people did after Aaron tells them it's not worth it. It's not worth it, they still went to sin. This is what the Midrash means. That Aaron was the one who brought hatred between God and the Jewish people. Because not knowingly, obviously he didn't intend on this, he told the Jewish people it's not worth the sin. And they still went on to do the sin, upgrading their sin to an intentional level, which is a greater hatred and strife between Hashem and the Jewish people. It was a worse sin. The Zera Shimshon actually tells us that this claim that Aaron used, that there's no substance to the golden calf, it's not even noteworthy of worshipping it, Moses used the same claim in a different scenario, and it actually had a positive outcome. Unlike Aaron's outcome, which was negative, it had a positive outcome. Listen to this. When God allows Moses and invites him back up for 40 days and 40 nights to negotiate and to try to have the Jewish people be forgiven for the sin of the golden calf, you know what Moses tells him? One of the claims Moses tells God is, Hashem, why are you so hurt, so jealous that the fact that the Jewish people sinned with the sin of the golden calf and they worshipped it? It has no substance to it. It's not worth anything. How are you comparing yourself to this golden calf? There's no correlation. And Hashem said, you know what? You're right. But look at that. Wasn't that the same thing Aaron said? But Aaron said it in one context and the results were unfortunately not positive. Moses said the exact same thing in a different context. In the opposite direction. He was saying it to God, not to the Jewish people. And Hashem accepted it for the benefit of the Jewish people. In life we have to always make note that what we say and when we say it and who we are saying it to makes all a big difference in the ingredients of what the outcome and the results of whatever we say is going to be. But now the Zera Shimshon continues and says, let's go to the end of that verse. The end of that verse in Proverbs chapter 10, verse 12. I'm going to read it again for you. Sinat teorer medanim, that hatred arouses strife. And then King Solomon ends off, Ve'al kol peshaim techase ahava. And for all sins, for all transgressions, love can take care of it. Love covers up for all sins and transgressions. What does that mean, the Zera Shimshon says? That is the brotherly love of Moses. The love that Moses had for his older brother Aaron. Listen to a conversation that takes place in the Midrash between Moses and God. Moses comes up to God and tells him, yes, my brother sinned. It's okay. Let's forgive him. Hashem says we can't forgive him. The unforgivable has taken place for the Jewish people and your brother was the conduit to it. Moses says, please forgive him. Hashem says, no, we have to destroy them. Moses says, just because the pit, the well, is hated, why does the water inside have to be punished? That's a very deep line. And the Zera Shimshon explains it as follows. The pit, the well, is Aaron. And the water inside are Aaron's children. Why do Aaron's children have to be punished now? Because of Aaron's honest mistake. It's like when you have a well or a pit and you fill it up with dirt. Not only is the pit suffering, but the water inside is being smothered. And the water itself is being drowned. He gives another example to God. He says, God, you gave honor to certain trees on account of their offspring, on account of their fruit. There's a Mishnah in Masechet Tamid that tells us that all types of trees, with the exception of trees which were used for any idolatrous acts, are able to be burnt on the altar. Doesn't matter, cedar tree, cedar wood, pine, oak, all different types of wood. However, there are two types of trees which cannot be burnt on the altar, and that is from an olive tree as well as a grapevine. Why? Because since the libations, the pouring of olive oil as well as wine was put on the altar, in order to honor the offsprings, their parent, if you want to call it, their source, which is the tree itself, was not burned on at the same time at the altar. So now Moses comes to God and says, if you honor a tree on account of their fruit, all the more so should you honor Aaron on account of his offspring, on account of his children. Aaron had 4 sons. 2 of them died by Kiddush Hashem, by sanctifying God's name. That was Nadav and Avihu. And the other 2 were righteous, noble men, ready here to serve in the temple. Moses is coming and telling God, don't punish the children on account of the father. Rather, give honor to the father due to the good deeds of the children. And this was Moses' claim. This was how Al kol peshaim techase ahava, that love can cover all mistakes, all sins. It was the brotherly love the genuine commitment that Moses had for his older brother. Moshe says, Moshe asks God and tells him, please take my brother Aaron and raise him up. Let him be a Kohen on account of his sons. The Midrash says, you know what God answers back to Moses? God tells Moses, I'm going to draw Aaron close to me on your account, Moses, and I'm going to make him the mainstay, I'm going to make him the primary, and I'm going to make his children the subcategory, the offsprings. So the Zera Shimshon says, what is God's answer to Moshe? Moshe asked that Aaron would be given honor and been forgiven on account of his children. First of all, God says, no, he's being forgiven on your account, Moses. Second of all, Aaron's going to be the primary and the secondary is going to be his children. Exactly not what Moses asked. What's going on? So now listen to a fascinating discovery that I personally discovered this week for the first time. Something that many Jews don't know. We all know why Aaron is the Kohen and the Kohen Gadol and not Moses. Because go back all the way to the beginning of the book of Exodus when God approaches Moses in the image of a burning bush. He tells God, I cannot be the messenger. God asks him and presses him and wants him to do it. You know what Moshe says? Shelachna bi'ad tishlach. Send whoever you wish to send to go, but it will not be me. Hashem says, you know what? I'm going to force you. You're going to be for sure the one to do it, but you know who's going to be the priest? You know who the Kohen is going to be? It's going to be your brother Aaron. So we all learn that story as the Kehuna was taken away from Moses, given to his brother Aaron. However, really, when we delve deep into it, based on the rules of the Talmud and the explanation of the Zera Shimshon, you know what really happened was the Kehuna, the priesthood, was taken away from Moses' children. Only from his children. If we remember the 7 days of inauguration of the tabernacle, do you know who was the one that was carrying out all of the service? It was Moses. Moses was the one doing it in order to show Aaron and his children how to do it. The Gemara gives us a rule that once a person is elevated to a level of kehuna, of kohen, of being a priest, they cannot be brought down again. In simple terms, this means that Moses himself was a kohen. You know who was punished on account of him refusing God's request? Moses' children. So Moses was a Kohen, Aaron was a Kohen, Aaron's children were Kohanim, but Moses' children were Leviim. That's how it plays out. And now, do you want to see how noble Moses is? And this is why God's answer was, on account of you, Moses, am I going to forgive Aaron. Moses had an opportunity now. He could have taken a step back and saying, hey, let me put all this into perspective. The reason why I'm not a Kohen, or rather yet, the reason why my children are not Kohanim, is because I sinned. Now look at my brother Aaron. Aaron was given the opportunity of being a priest, but he sinned. Now let me ask you, who sinned worse? Was Moses a greater sin for refusing God? Or Aaron's sin on creating an opportunity for the entire Jewish population to serve another idol? Which one is more severe? We can all agree that Aaron's sin was more severe than Moses'. At the end of the day, Moses really went and did God's will. So Aaron now made a worse sin than Moses. You know what Moses could have done? He could have came to God and said, you know what, God? Now let's take away the priesthood from Aaron's family and give it back to mine. That never crossed Moses' mind. Moshe Rabbeinu never thought of that. He only thought good for his brother. He went out and said, Hashem, forgive him, forgive him, forgive him. He never was trying to manipulate the situation of Aaron's fault to gain something back. God looks at it and says, wow, if you are a human being of flesh and bone and you're able to be so forgiving, something so sensitive to you, something so beneficial to you, he said, all the more so I, God, the all-passionate and compassionate, merciful God, how can I not forget Aaron for this sin? So when God answers Moses, I'm going to forgive Aaron, I'm going to draw him close on account of you, Moshe Rabbeinu, it's because of Moshe's claim about his willingness to completely step aside, subdue himself, and let his brother have the honor and the greatness that was due to him for coming with a gladdened heart to greet Moses back in the desert when they met after God speaks to them in the burning bush. Hashem says there, but you know what? Aaron's going to be the mainstay. He's going to be the primary because I'm fully forgiving him on your account. This is how the Zera Shimshon explains what's going on. And why do we even bring this up? Why? Well, look at this week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion says, Tzav et Aharon ve'et banav lemor. Command Aaron and his children, saying. In the previous parasha, all the commandments were being commanded towards Aaron's children. Aaron's children should bring up the korbanot. They should slaughter. They should do this. They should do everything. No, here's something different. Here Aaron's name is being mentioned. Aaron's name is being mentioned, as Zera Shimshon says, because Aaron is fully forgiven for the sin of the golden calf, and he and his children will be Kohanim, will be the priests forevermore. In life, we have certain relationships. We have different opportunities to pursue relationships. Yet if I can give us all a piece of advice, this advice we see from our grand rabbi, our leader, Moshe Rabbeinu, that being committed to family means most. It means most, and it bears the greatest, the sweetest, the most ripe fruits. As a person, we sometimes find it very easy to help others or to want to go out with others. But let me tell you a secret. You know who's going to be there by your deathbed? You know who's going to be there when you're in the hospital? You know who's going to be there when you're in a hard time? It's going to be your family. It's going to be your wife, your husband, your parents, your children, your grandchildren. We might as well invest in our family, which is going to be there. Now, we need to have chesed and loving kindness to everyone. But when a family unit is strong, nothing can be in their way. They'll be able to plow through anything. There's a saying which I dislike. The saying is, you are only as strong as your weakest link. It's true in some aspects, but when it comes to a family, I disagree tremendously. When it comes to a family, the family is as strong as its strongest link, because the strongest link is there and able to help others and be there for others and lift them up. We learn this from Aaron and Moses. Aaron came to see Moses. He was fully happy that his younger brother was chosen to be the leader and to deliver the Jewish people, and he wasn't. And Moses was fully happy and committed to making sure that Aaron will be the priest, even though he lost it. We see that in this week's Parashat. We see this back in Exodus. We see this also in the Megillah. We see this between Mordechai and Esther. Mordechai is now approached by Haggai. Haggai was the chaplain. He was the chamberlain. He was the guy going around and collecting all the women in Shushan, who's beautiful, who's going to be a prospect to be the queen. And he hears that there's a beautiful girl living with Mordechai. He knocks on Mordechai's door. Mordechai says, "No, Esther, you don't really need Esther." "Yes, we do." "Okay, give me a word, privacy with her." And he tells her, number one, never forget that God is with you. You are in a very specific and special scenario. This situation is made for you. Go with it. Stay close to God. He's there for you. No matter how sad or sorry, dark or gloomy the situation looks for you. And then he told her one more thing. You know what the second thing he told her is? Is don't tell anyone where you're from or what your religion is. Esther had to go for 4.5 years living as queen in the palace, day in, day out, with Achashverosh harassing her. Where you're from and what's your religion? And she always said nothing. She never gave an answer. That's true commitment. That showed Esther's commitment to Mordechai, to the Jewish people, to God. She was committed to her family. When us Jews realize that our family is the number one commitment in our lives, when we commit to our family will recommit to us. Now, yes, all Yehudim are all family. We're all brothers and sisters. So yes, we should commit to all Yehudim. We should commit to all humanity. But I want to make a point in saying that when we commit to our blood family, our live family, we will benefit tremendously. It only works for our good. There's one more thing I wanted to share in this week's Torah portion, which is very apropos to this whole time, and especially this parasha, is even though in the previous Torah portion the commandments were not commanded to Aaron, rather they were commanded to his children, this week, besides for God proving, like the Zera Shimshon said, that Aaron was completely forgiven for the sin of the golden calf, but there's another reason why Aaron's name is mentioned here and the commandment is done specifically to him. In the previous Torah portion, we learned that slaughtering could be done by anyone bringing an offering, whether they're Kohen, Levi, or even Israel. However, the bringing of the catching of the blood, the bringing of the limbs, the burning on the Mizbeach, that had to be done by Kohanim. And it was all commanded to Aaron's children, meaning that Aaron was not obligated to do that service. However, he was allowed to. That's why he wasn't commanded to do it. This week, Aaron's name is commanded. About what? About specifically cleaning the altar. Cleaning the altar from the ash. Brooming it off from the ash of the leftovers of the wood or the limbs that were burnt on the Mizbeach, on the altar. Why is Aaron's name here? Does Aaron have to do every single one? No. So if it's just like the other ones that he was allowed to do it but not obligated to do it, so why is his name mentioned here? Listen to a fascinating answer from the Khatam Sofer. The Khatam Sofer says that when it comes to a mitzvah, when it comes to a commandment of God, there is nothing possible that a person can do which is degrading. There's nothing which takes down and crumbles down their composure of their honor and their respect. To the fact that even Aaron, the high priest, the greatest Jew to live, his children and grandchildren, his descendants which are going to be, the Kohen Gadol, will always be also obligated and allowed to clean off the altar. Last week I was touring a fairly new school, a school that opened up in the past decade or so. Beautiful school, grand school. And I was giving the tour by its founder, a great Jewish man living here in South Florida, committed to community, committed to children. And he founded and he built this school. So he's touring, he's showing me the high school. And he's going up and down the halls and in the stairwell. And every couple minutes I see him bending over and picking up garbage, wrappers. And he's not complaining about it. He's picking it up, he's keeping it in his fist, and every time we get to the garbage can, he's depositing it in. Is it degrading for him to pick it up? No, because he cares. He invested part of his life into building that school. He cares for its well-being, every aspect. Its physical aspects, its spiritual aspects, its educational aspects, its emotional aspects. He cares about the school because he's invested in it. There's nothing degrading about him picking up the garbage. It shows his commitment to the school. There was once a couple who were having arguments, and it was getting heated. So like every good Jewish couple, what do? They call the rabbi. There you go, you got it right. The rabbi comes over, and the two are arguing and going and bickering and back and forth. At a certain moment, the rabbi says, stop. What are we even arguing about? I don't understand. So the wife says, my husband does not want to take the garbage out from the kitchen trash bin. And the husband barks back saying, she's the one who filled it up, she's the one who cooked all day, she's the one who should take it out. They're going back and forth. The rabbi gets up, goes over to the kitchen, goes to the garbage bin, picks up the garbage bag, and starts walking out the house. The couple gets up, Rabbi, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? He says, well, the two of you don't want to do it, so let me do it. No, Rabbi, it's degrading for you to take the garbage out. The rabbi looked at them and said, there is nothing degrading about me taking out the garbage if that's going to bring you peace. Bringing out the garbage at that point was a mitzvah. It was a commandment of God. It was bringing peace between one another. Changing diapers, cooking, doing laundry, cleaning floors. All of that can be looked at as degrading or an opportunity, as a mitzvah. But where does it change? It changes up here. As soon as you activate your mind that what you are doing is productive and that what you are doing is a Torah obligation, then you are now really being productive and you are fulfilling that Torah obligation. Someone has to raise children. Someone has to clothe them, bathe them, change them. Do you want part of that mitzvah? Do you want part of that merit of all the good that's going to come out of those children? That's why our holy wives are so special. They're committed, they're dedicated. And it's not only incumbent on the wives, it's incumbent on the fathers just as much as the mothers. Yet we need to be committed. I'll end off with, the Talmud says that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Judah the Prince, who was one of the wealthiest Jews to ever live, a very powerful Jew, a prominent Jew, he was study partner with Marcus Aurelius. It was said about him that when he was at his deathbed, he claimed that he never enjoyed from any of the wealth that God bestowed upon him. None of it did he ever take pleasure in. So how could that be? He was so wealthy, he was so prominent, he definitely had to enjoy from some of that. So one opinion is, the Tosafot's opinion is that no, he never enjoyed from any of it, rather he always served it to his guests. But the Vilna Gaon says, do you know what? You know what it was? That everything that he did, every good delicacy that he ate, every piece of linen clothes that he wore, every golden chariot that he rode in, all of that was specifically with the intention to fulfill a mitzvah, to take the mundane and uplift it to be closer to God. When we have a Shabbat Seudah, we're going to eat a poor meal tomorrow. It's going to be a beautiful festive meal. We're going to eat, we're going to drink. What's the purpose? The purpose is to uplift the mundane, get closer to God. After all, God created the physicality in this world. He created the sweet things, the good things. He created it for us to benefit from it, but not just to benefit from it and to uplift it. When you go to sleep at night, do you go to sleep to recharge from the previous day and to get up and see what the next day brings? Or do you go to sleep to recharge in order to fulfill God's will tomorrow, to help others, to do good? When you go out to work, do you go out to work for the thrill? Do you go out to work to see more digits in your bank account? Or do you go out to work to provide a livelihood for your children in order that your children can be raised as Jews and given a Jewish education and serve God? You're doing the same thing. You're going 8 hours a day, you're going 10 hours a day, you're going 15 hours a day to work anyways. You're working 5 days a week, you're working 7 days a week, you're doing whatever it is. You might as well activate in your mind that you're doing it for the sake of something greater, for taking it rather than that basic mundane level and uplifting it. That's the point of Purim. Purim is a time where we're able to drink and raise our minds up to God. Raise everything He's given us and look above the surface. The surface is there was a simple war, there was a simple genocide which was decreed upon the Jews by this wacko Haman, and that it just got abolished. No, look beyond the surface. Drink a little, uplift yourself to see that there was a miracle that took place. There was a nes. God is looking out for us. God is looking out to do good for us. God wants our commitment to Him, to His Torah, and in light of this week's Torah portion and in light of Purim, towards our brothers and sisters.